And here we are. We are so excited. Welcome to Moxie Zoom style or Zoom Moxie style.
I like Zoom Moxie style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're so excited that you ladies are joining us tonight. For those that don't know me, I am Michelle. I am a life coach and grief specialist, and my heart is to come alongside women and help them move through transitions in life.
And my name's Marianne. I usually call myself Michelle when we've done this, not on purpose, but I'm the other half of Moxie, and my work now is to coach church leaders and to build healthy teams, not a pool of people, but a healthy team. And so Michelle and I were talking this morning. We have known each other for almost 14 years, over 14 years now. And what Moxie is, we really want to do three things. We want women to engage in the conversation, whatever the conversation. We invite women in a safe place to engage. We also want women to be active in their journey. We can't sit on the sidelines all the time. And the last thing, which is really what this is all about, is we want women to know that they are not alone. We are in this together. We're in this together. So that's the premise. And we would just love to hear everyone to go around, whoever wants to speak, and tell everybody where you're from and a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dig in. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll start. Thank you so much, Marianne and Michelle, for inviting me. It's a joy to be with you and to be with Samel and Drea today, and for us to just be having this conversation. My name is Lucretia, and I live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Moved here about 20 years ago. I grew up in Philadelphia, and from first grade to 8th grade attended an African-American school, but lived in an all-community. So I had a dichotomous world growing up. It ended up going to a magnet high school, so lots of mix of culture, and then to a Catholic, predominantly white college, university. So lots of cultural mix kind of has been my experience. In this current work where I am with racial justice, I think I just began to break down some of what I was experiencing. I think my husband and I were on the back deck the other day and said, you know, we feel like for the first time we can breathe. Like there is some sentiment to what we've been feeling, that we've been, had a mask on for so long, or have had our breath taken for so long. So some of the work that I'm doing is about and around dismantling and disrupting these systems of oppression. I work at a predominantly white university teaching there. So it's definitely lots of work to be done in academia, in the church, in our personal lives. And so I'm here for the journey. I can get sad, I can get angry, but I'm definitely hopeful about the work that we're doing, and that voices are being heard, and that we're making definite changes in our world. So I'm glad to be here.
So we're glad to have you here, Lucretia.
Well, hi, you guys. My name is Andrea Oliver, and I had the pleasure of meeting Marianne, Michelle, and her husband, Marianne's husband, on Saturday, which was actually the first time. And they told me about Moxie and what it's all about, and how they would, like for me to be a part of it. And I said, sure, this is something, yes, I would love to do. I just thank you guys. I'm honored to be here, and you two ladies, I'm excited, and I'm happy to have this conversation with you guys. I was born in California in 1981, but I was raised in Winfield, Louisiana. So part of my roots are there. My parents born and raised there, my grandparents and my great-grandparents. So part of my childhood was there, and yes, some memories, were very good there. I remember growing up there, everybody knew which side, of course, which they belonged, because there was a train track that pretty much ran through the city that would be predominantly one side white, predominantly one side, black. Went to school with other white kids and everything like that, but still it was pretty much everybody still, they knew their place. Went to some very diverse schools, junior high. And then when I got to high school, at one point I went to a predominantly white high school. And then from there on went to college, and it was kind of like the same thing, predominantly white, but maybe a few minorities, which it was Birmingham Southern and Birmingham, Alabama, where I met my husband. And right now, me and my husband have been attending Elevation Church for right now, and just really getting involved in leadership and community there. And right now, since the pandemic, just kind of being a domestic engineer, as they say. So.
Yeah. Glad to have you, Drea.
Yes.
My name is Samil, and I am born and raised in California. I have only lived outside of California for 5 months, I think, in my whole my whole life. I have 3 children, one in grad school, one in college, and one in high school. I actually was raised in San Francisco, so I experienced a lot of diversity in school. But I went to my schools. I moved around a lot. My mother had a substance use disorder for over 30 years. She's been clean now for about 15 years though. So we moved around a lot, and the schools that I went to were predominantly Black. In high school, I did have the opportunity to go to a boarding school, which was predominantly white. And I absolutely hated it. So because I hated it, I did not take advantage of the opportunity that I had. So I was influenced by it a little bit, but not as much as I could have and should have been. I finished out high school in a public school that was multicultural, but predominantly Asian in San Francisco. And I dropped out of college 3 times, but I recently got my bachelor's in psychology in December. And I'm in grad school right now. I'm in grad school to be a social worker, a MSW.
Yes.
And I'm also so for work, I work at my church. I'm the connections director or the assimilation director. So I'm responsible for discipleship, which is my passion. My old executive pastor, he left about a year ago, almost a year ago, but he really instilled in me the desire for, to make disciples, transformational disciples. And that's actually what his doctorate was on. His dissertation was on. Yeah, I'm a pastry chef, so I do too much all the time, and I have to have Marianne give me kudos when I take a nap and stuff, to care for myself.
Self-care.
That's me.
Yep, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the screen, and if all 4 of us are on it, you've got 2 white girls sitting here, and we're here today because of what we say Moxie's about. Like, we're on this journey with you, but we're wanting to really learn in here and learn in here. But we don't want you to feel like you're here to teach. Like, you're here today as women, and it would be like the perfect scenario if you were sitting at my dining room table, and I had just, well, not me, because Samil's a baker, so Samil would have baked a cake. I would, but that's too much pressure. But we would be sitting around a table and enjoying tea, coffee, lemonade, whatever. And just as women, really pouring our hearts out to the state of this racism that is just running through our country in a way that I've not seen at this level before. And so we just want to give y'all an opportunity as women, Black women, different parts of the country, doing different things. We've got 2 mamas, and Drea married, no kids at this point, and but like all those things. Because I think with Moxie, just real like with Michelle and I, people look at us and they go, "How can y'all be friends?" Like, they don't. Like, people are crazy. Like, like they just think, I mean, so we're talking racism. This is like not even, and still they think we shouldn't be friends because we're so different.
Right.
And I have had single women walk up to me and say, I don't understand how you're friends with Michelle. Not that I didn't like her, but that we were so close.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't understand what you mean. And they said, well, you're married. I'm like, I know. You know, I know I'm married. It's like looking at you. Well, you're black. And you go, I know. And yet it's like we're constantly going, y'all, like, get over yourselves. And so we talk a lot about how we're different, but we're the same. But then what are those struggles for her as a single woman are, and with me as a married woman, and what is our relationship, and how do we grow from that and work through it? And so we just thought this would be another opportunity to expand that and talk about it here.
I just want to add something in addition to that, because we care about each other and we are different. One of the things we're very intentional about, and this is something that we also talk about with Moxie, is because I love her and I care about her, when she's in pain or when something's bothering her, I want to hear about it. I may not be able to relate to it, but I sure can come alongside and sit with her. And I'm going to start crying already, and cry with her, because when you care about somebody and they're in pain, you, even if you can't help them, you want to be there with them. And that's something that we do with Moxie all the time. And, you know, Lucretia, we've known you the longest, but we love you women. We love you. And you guys know, you know us. We're not just saying that. So we, you know, our hearts are when someone that we care about is in pain, we want to share that the best that we can, right? I don't know if best is the right word to use, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to hear what's bothering you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we fill in the blanks with all kinds of stuff, right?
Yes, and I feel like here's the thing, Lucretia, remember this, whenever we had events or we do anything at church or do anything at a party or do a meeting or do a rally, so think about some of the protests and rallies that are happening. The question I always ask is, when it's over, what do you want people to say? So when I go home, do you want people, if you come to a Moxie event, do you go home and say, oh, that was cute, they had pedophores and chocolates and it was fun? We don't want that. We know ahead of time that we want women, when they leave our space, to go, man, I was convicted. I was challenged to really think about something and have some accountability to my part in that. And so, but the thing that we also love in bringing with different women of ages also is that there have been many, many times where the woman would say, like a young 30-year-old was sitting at the table with a grandma. And at the end of the night, I said, what's your aha? And she said, so I didn't think we would have anything in common. She's a grandma, but she's like, I shared what I was insecure about, and her too. And I'm like, great, because now when you walk out of this room and you're in the store and you're in the street and you see a woman that you go, I cannot relate to her. You might not, but you'll look at her differently. You'll see her as a woman that has insecurities and struggles and issues and problems and all the things. And so, ladies, tell us what's on your heart as a mom, as a woman, as a sister, as an educator. How are you feeling these days? What do you want someone to know about you as a woman?
I'll go. My son is 17. He's 17, and I didn't realize until now how much I had to put on. I did in school because I had to be the you know, the one to prove that they deserve to be at the school with scholarship. For me, it's just a way of life. Like, I expose my kids to all types of cultures. It's because we live in California. It's because how I was raised. We eat all types of food. We go all different types of places. My previous church, I was there for 17 years, and my father-in-law was the pastor. And I actually said the other day to my friend, "Ooh, I didn't even pay attention to all of this when I was in my little Black church bubble." Because I had my own little community, you know, and I was like, wow, this is different, you know. But it's not a myth that I have to tell my son, where's your belt? Go back in the house and put on a belt. Why is your pants sagging? He wants to be cool like all his friends are, but it will definitely get him a different type of look, a different type of attention. And he's light-skinned. So that's a whole issue, you know, because it's not always light and dark. It's just, this is what I see you as. Right. He's 17 years old. He's not a thief. He's not none of that. But when he's in the store, going to the store by himself, I'm like, don't touch nothing. He's not 5. He's 17. But I'm like, the people will follow you around the store. And you know, it's really exhausting to have to do that. But I didn't know. It was just something that I had accepted. Like, this is how we have to live, you know. And I'm very outspoken, but I wasn't outspoken about that because I'm like, this is just the way of life. But as in my in school, I'm like, oh, social justice. Oh, environment, person in environment. So if he gets depressed or if he is angry or whatever, I have to say what happened outside, not just what's going on inside. What happened inside to make you feel like that? You know, and it's just really like, a lot of times is do whatever you need to do to basically not be seen, or just to blend in. I'll say that, to blend in.
I want to ask a question, and I'm willing to ask it wrong. And I'm willing to say things wrong. So, and when I say that to y'all to correct me, and that's okay. I need that. I'm inviting that in. Because there's some terminologies that are bubbling up, and I hear what you were just saying, Samil, and I just want to make sure I'm hearing this right. One of the terms, and I don't know if this is right or not, but they call it this unconscious bias. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when I first moved here to Greenville, I went to some women's thing, and they were talking about it. It was the first time I ever heard it, 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago. So it's kind of been like, I was like, oh my goodness, like that unconscious thing that we're all doing. And so when you were saying that you just did what you had to do and talk to your son the way you had to talk to him, without thinking that actually being part of this unconscious raising, I have 2 boys. That's exhausting, just raising 2 boys. But to have that extra layer, and you're saying just now, how does that align with like me in that terminologies of, if I'm saying it correctly, having an unconscious bias of how I'm just living my daily life without realizing that I'm actually contributing to racism?
Mm-hmm. Well, like Lucretia said, my favorite word, it's the individual's responsibility to ask the questions and to be open to what people say. One of my pastors is, well, most of them are white, but the one I'm talking about, she's a white lady. She's a clinical mental health. She has a clinical mental health degree. She's our care pastor. And one day, we are very close. And she said, I don't see color. And I said, come on, let me come talk to you. You can't say that. You have to. And then she was like, oh, okay. Somebody else at our church had told her that. And she was like, she did tell me that. And I need to like remember not to say that or figure out how to change that, because her thing was just like, I don't notice it, or I don't, and I said, you have to like everything about me. And the lady who said it to her was older. So she was like, if you say you don't see color, that disregards my fight for civil rights that she personally had to do. And I said, I have not personally participated in the civil rights movement. So that's not my thing. But my thing is every nuance of my voice, I'm bringing in fried chicken, I'm eating collard greens. You don't understand why I'm not eating carrots with ranch. It's all about my entire culture. It's all about every part of me. And you have to, if you don't see color, you don't see how unique we are.
Well, the whole point, I have to see color and yet still
see how unique.
Yeah, because we're all also unique. But I think this is why this conversation has to be said a lot in a lot of different ways and a lot of different voices, because people to see that's what Samil is saying, what Dre is saying, and these are all different women. Because there's been this thing that it's like when it's been called out to a white person, it's like there's a heartbrokenness of like, I didn't realize it. Like that's that systemic thing I know, Lucretia, you talk about. It's so deep. It's like we don't even know sometimes what we're doing. But I think that's maybe, Dre, it's like, but this is what we have to call out and talk about, because now I know. Right?
And what you know.
Yeah. And we all have a different lived experience. And so I think, one of the things that you initially open up the conversation about how do you feel, I think one of the things that as a Black woman, I've been feeling for so long is invisible. And that level of invisibility in so many spaces,
right.
Meaning that my voice is not asked for, or just even like yesterday with the whole, Facebook page group where it was a community group. And I kept saying over and over, this is a racist post. This should be taken down. This should, we need administrators, and back and forth. The minute a white ally got on the Facebook group and said, this needs to come down, it was down in 2 minutes. Now, I don't know, if that was in response to that, but that's what I mean about that invisibility, that as a Black woman, you carry that. And a lot of times you don't even know it. And so I think society is supremacist in terms of the white perspective. So perspective, white supremacy, they, get ruffled and think it's, it's, the KKK, it's that. That's part of it. But part of it is just that culture is slanted towards the white perspective. Magazines, beauty models, size and shape, food choices, so many things are unicultural in that respect. And so as a Black woman, when you file in line under that really does suppress your voice.
Yeah.
And so you kind of walk around sometimes in these days of really trying to find your place, trying to reestablish your beauty, trying to reestablish, what are the things that bring you joy, trying to reestablish this affinity for fried chicken and collard greens and not to be ashamed or embarrassed, all of those things. And I think it's been suppressed. So, I totally agree with what Samil is saying, as a mother of Black sons, I can think timeless times. My son is 6'3". His white friend counterparts would stand in the teacher's face, scream, holler, curse, walk out of the room when they did not get the right grade that they wanted. My son, in his presence, Black man, just approaches her and she says she feels threatened.
Yeah.
So those types of things as a mother, those are fractures that you have over and over. And so A, you're invisible as a Black woman. B, you're protecting your loved ones. How do you do that and operate day to day? I think the thing that's been most challenging for me is just business as usual. I have students that I have to teach. I still have to pay my light bill. I still got to pay, my car note. Those things still have to happen. But even that those things are happening, I know that I'm living in a world where there is this oppression that's rising up, that you're seeing it. It's the face of it is present. And one of the things that I told one of my church leaders, the things that I texted her, I said, I do not feel like our church is a refuge. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like it's a refuge. And that was the hardest reality that I have to face. Like, I don't feel currently in this moment that I can run to my church as a place of shelter.
Right.
Who there is going to shelter me?
Right.
Who there is going to align with me? And I think that has been kind of the brokenness that I've been feeling, that I don't feel that it's a refuge. And I don't know if it's just my feelings or that's the reality, if my perception,
No.
what it is, but I just feel like this is not a safe space. You know, even if we think about loving people where they are, this is where I am. Am I being loved where I am? And I just represent me singularly, the whole diaspora of Black people. So this is what Black people are feeling when they need to be loved in this moment and to have refuge. So those are the things that I feel very disconnected from right now.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And sad.
And exhausting.
It is.
Exhausting.
It's exhausting.
What's the thing, you know, the Bible, we all are made to be known by God. Like that's that he put in us. Like, I want to be seen. I want to be known. I want to be seen. And for you to say you feel invisible just smacks right in the face of, and of course it's where that's coming from, that core of you need the way you are made to be seen exactly how he made you. No mistake there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely feel exactly where you are, feeling invisible. And I think for me growing up, it was always this thing of, you know, you have to do things twice as better. You have to work twice as hard, you know, to the level of success of as your counterparts. And I just remember as a little girl, one of the things my father used to do with us, he would always, you know, once a week, we always had to learn dictionary words. And he would always, you know, he would make us, you know, say the definition, use it in a sentence, you know, spell the word. And we would always have to, you know, use it in conversation. And I remember saying to my dad, I was like, why do you have us, you know, learning this stuff? I'm like, nobody talks like this in the real world. And he was like, Drea, yes, there's people that do talk like this in the real world. I'm just trying to prepare you for what's out there. And we would always have talks about, you know, racism, because for as my family, when they talked to us about racism, it was to prepare us for what was out there. So we won't pretty much kind of, in a sense, fall on our butt and not knowing when we step into it, what exactly it is. You know, and I just had this thing, and for me, and I just felt like, and I still feel this way, this is very unfair and it's unbiased that I have to go this extra mile to prove that I'm just a human being. You know, I have to, you know, do things as a Black woman to assimilate into this culture of what you have created for as whiteness. I have to assimilate to that. And you say my hair has to be straightened, my nose has to be a little bit thinner in order for me to be considered as someone who is beautiful. And for me, you know, when, you know, Amir Aubrey and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, you know, especially that hit me right in the middle of my chest, because I was just like, you know, it was just back to back to back. And I said to God, I said, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe in my home. I don't feel safe outside of my home. And looking at it, I said, I don't even know if I've ever had a panic attack and not realized that I had one, but I think just those incidents happening back to back to back, I said, I think I'm having a panic attack. I really do think I'm having a panic attack. I said, because this is the fear. This is the fear of Black people all around the world, because we really don't know what's going to happen from a day-to-day moment. We don't know. And like you said, you can't even run to the one place where you thought that maybe you would have refuge. And the reality is that no, we don't have it. We don't have it, because we're met at the door with, well, you know, you just need to get over it. You know, it's not going to make it any better if we just, you know, bringing this up, you know, and white people have been, you know, Black people are racist against white people too. And, you know, and it's like, no, you're missing the point and what you're doing, because what we're seeing a lot now, even in churches, is that it's deflection across the board. I don't want to talk about it, so I'm going to deflect from the issue, you know. And like I said, it's tiring, it's exhausting, and I just, you know, and it's just this being in this place of I just don't know right now. I just don't know. And it doesn't mean that I don't believe in God or that I don't have faith in him, but it's just like I just at this moment I don't know. I really don't know.
It breaks my heart.
One of the things, and I hear Andrea talking about this, I'm like, when people deflect, they tend to find a person, a justification, a person that's a justification. So there is a person, and I'm not going to say her name, but a lot of people who want to prove that racism doesn't exist share her videos and all of this type of stuff. And the last video that she put out, I don't know if it's the last video because I didn't watch it, but she read or talked about George Floyd's rap sheet. And I thought about EJ. Now, first of all, EJ is supposed to be able to excel because he's light skinned. I mentioned that earlier. And he got blue eyes. So he's supposed to be all right in the world, according to people. So EJ pulled the fire alarm at school. And my first thought was, this is going to be on my son for the rest of his life. A fire alarm? Really? And I had to give him the lecture. Don't you know what people are going to think about you? Don't you know what people are going to say about you? And when I heard that she read that man's rap sheet, I said, it's just typical. Now, EJ had a diversion and he had to do some community service and everybody loves him. So, you know, he got to sweep the school instead of doing all whatever. So it's off of his record. But somebody could find it if they want to. And he pulled the fire alarm, which is a crime. I'm not saying that it's, you know, he should have just got a slap on the hand. I'm not saying that. Yeah. But even when we were in the meeting with the officer said, well, Ms. Thorner, do you have anything you want to say? I said, no. And he said, well, do you understand? I said, absolutely. I understand what's going on. And I ran down what's going on. He committed a crime. It is punishable by this, that, and the other. This is the penal code. Don't play with me. Right. Yeah. What do you want me to say? Do you want me to wring his neck while we in the classroom so you could be like, I abused my son? I have no idea. Well, people are just usually more vocal. I said, I'm fine. Because then I would have been an angry Black woman.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out our lesson to him or our speech to him. Like every time something happens is, do you know you are about to be 18? Like, I can't protect you. It's a man on our corner that EJ was walking to his house. No, we live across the street from Walmart. So around the corner from Walmart, EJ was walking to Walmart. It was dark outside, but it was only like 6 o'clock. This man came outside screaming and hollering, stay off my lawn. And I don't know if he said anything about being Black or anything like that, but EJ was like, Mom, I was scared. We're in California. We don't live in Alabama. We don't live in Georgia. It's 5 o'clock at night and he lived across the street. And he said, I was scared. But really, that whole rap sheet thing, I was like, oh, Lord.
Yeah. Samil, you know what the saddest part about that is? And that this is, you know, why I really always talk about the systemic racism and injustices because, yes, she read that rap sheet from George Floyd, but I tell you right now that there are tons of politicians that have a very long rap sheet and or money that have gotten them out of fractions. And so that is the economic disenfranchisement that we see. That
Yeah.
as a person, you do have to have those conversations, because we know that, that the cost of expungement of records and even the ability for that stuff to be unearthed is so much different than the person that's sitting in a political office that may have been accused of the sexual violence or domestic violence or, fraud or, all types of money laundering or whatever it is that a person in power and privilege can have.
Yep.
And so is systematically, even when she's reading that,
Yeah.
it's an example of how the criminal justice system is slanted. When we look at the war against drugs, there never was a war against drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Sentencing differences for crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. You mean to tell me the less lethal drug gets you more time in jail?
Yeah.
3 strikes, you're out. You commit a crime, and on the 3rd one, no matter what it is, you go to jail. There are Black people that are in prison for violent crimes when all they did was sit in the car while somebody made the drug deal that went bad.
Yeah.
Sit in the car, not touch a gun, not go inside. Those are laws that are on the books that disenfranchise Black folks.
Right.
That rap sheet has absolutely no meaning to me. It has no meaning whatsoever to our community, because if you look at laws and legislature and the criminal justice system is slanted at every single turn.
Yeah.
So Black people don't have equity in the criminal justice system. When you think about over policing, when you think about over criminalizing, over convicting, it all pertains to money and representation. And if you're in a Black area where your mom may not have it, or you don't have those economic resources, you're going to be victim to whatever the system victimizes you with.
Yeah.
So that argument about George Floyd that she's saying, that is complete garbage. Because if I could pull up all the politicians and all the domestic violence calls they might have had to their home, or the driving while impaired calls, we would have something to really talk about. We don't have access to that.
Right. So if you want to like compare oranges to oranges.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And like, if that's what you want to, if that's what you want to measure everything by, then you're really going to have a level playing field, and there isn't a level playing field. And yet you want to bring it up and claim it as it is against someone else. Someone else made a point. I'd love to get your thought on this. Because they were talking about, well, they did wrong things, just Black men, the looters and all this. And someone made the comment, she said, why are we focusing on the act versus the cause?
Right.
And it's like, what is it? Because, I know y'all love me, but I ain't perfect. And I have to say that because this one's sitting here and she knows me really well. We have a joke. It's like, I never smoked because when my dad used to smoke, I would clog up, like I couldn't breathe. But we have a joke around here. If we wake up cranky, it's like, you look like you need a cigarette. Like, just being cranky.
Look a little rough.
But things will happen that I do things that I know are wrong. And I have to go back and check myself. Why? Mm-hmm. Why did I lash out? Why did I hit? Why did I yell at my husband? Why did I throw something? All that. And so we get so stuck on that. And this one woman just brought up a really good point. She's like, we got to get past, and we're not dismissing that that's wrong and that's bad and there are laws. But what causes a person to continually, when they feel like it's all against me anyways, right? And the whole oppression, like what is happening to our people that we are called, if we're really in the church, our brothers and sisters made in the image of God, and we say we love you, that there is an entire population of a people that are hurting and these things are happening, but that's the hard part, to drill down into the why, the root that goes back all the hundreds and thousands of years. And I don't know, just what are your thoughts about that? Does that make sense?
First, we have to remember that all the looters wasn't the protesters. And right. I'm not like, I don't investigate the videos that, so I'm not going to say all the looters was antagonists, but we know that all the looters were not protesters. Our Walmart over here got broken into and they had it on video, and they looked like mostly teenagers. They wasn't a part of no protest.
Right.
Right before the Walmart. They went to the Walmart specifically for that purpose.
Right.
But yes, I think that we have to look at the reason, and like you said, I think you said drill down. Sometimes at a base level, we don't know why. You know, for my son, when I say, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you do that?" He's like, "I don't know." You know.
Right.
And so I changed it around to be like, "What were you thinking?"
Mm-hmm.
And he'll say, "Mom, I wasn't thinking."
Right.
You know,
She's
but
human.
Lucretia said the bad word. She said the cuss word anyway, systemic. Because when you say systemic, people are like, "Oh my God, no," because it doesn't happen to me. Or I have not witnessed it, or I have not done this. It is systemic.
Oh, but see, this is
absolutely
so important. Here's the thing. I looked around my neighborhood. We moved in this house because we had 30 days to find a place to live 3 years ago. And I had a big German Shepherd dog, and apartments wouldn't take her, even though she's the biggest baby. So we had to find a house that would take a German Shepherd dog. That's why we're in this house. And then a year later, we started looking for a house. We said, let's just buy this one. Now, fast forward 2 more years. Because of all this, I'm looking around my neighborhood, and I said to Dean, are there no Black people in my neighborhood? Like, I didn't intentionally look for, I'm only going to move into a white neighborhood, right? But there are no Black people in my neighborhood. And so now I'm looking at, and you talk about systemic, it's like, why is this particular area, for whatever reason, all white? And I'm in it. So I really have to look around. Now, I'm not gonna make people move out and, you know, all that, but I think what the systemic issue is, it has to make me to look around and ask the question, why?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, and people will respond to that, and I'm not people, but people will respond to that and be like, well, Black people need to learn how to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and blah, 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 blah. But the thing about systemic is, my mama never taught me about finances.
right.
Because her mama never taught her about finances. Because her mama taught her a little bit so my great grandmother was mulatto. That's on her Negra, mulatto. Yeah. She passed for white. She had some money from her father, who didn't have nothing to do with her because he was white. Thank you. But she came and brought property. This is the story, in California, and rented it out to Black people. She bought property in white neighborhoods and rented it out to Black people. So her children saw her procuring property, using it to better, you know, people, but she didn't teach them how to individually manage money. Right. So yes, somebody could be like, well, if you get your credit together, then you can buy a house in a white neighborhood. But then it's like, I'm 46. I'm just now figuring out how to get my credit together, how important that is. I'm 46.
Right.
My husband right now
started on, Lucretia, you'll get this, the history of redlining, and how that just inherently through the years, just automatically, because you were just born in that district. Yeah. And that's all you know. And yet, so I'm going to sit out here, and I was born in a not redlined district, and look at you and go, well, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just figure it out? And of course, you're thinking, I'd love to figure it out. So,
yep. Yeah. But it just,
and then it even goes beyond the redlining. You know, it goes beyond the redlining. It goes, you know, it's multi-directional. So one of the directions is just sharecropping. If you think about, so you go back to the origin of the family. I hear you, Samil, and this is something that we talk about too with the finances. You go back to the origin of the family. Well, women were on the plantation with their husbands. Their husbands were sold. Their sons were sold. They were having babies or working the field for their white masters and having their own babies. So right there, you have the beginning of the fracture. So you didn't learn how to read. You had to figure out how to read, blah, 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 blah. Story goes on. You get where you need to go. But that's behind the 8 ball. Social Security comes around. Social Security, when it was created, it excluded farmers and domestic workers.
Right.
But we're Black people, farmers or domestic workers.
Mm-hmm.
Generations to come that exclude you from wealth.
Yeah.
Exclude you from wealth because now every generation forward, you've got to pay that money to take care of your parents and their parents and their parents and their parents, where if you had gotten Social Security, you would have had a little something procured for yourself. So that right there is another like economic disenfranchisement that fractures.
Yeah.
The thing that I think that is most disheartening to me is that we talk about using our tools and talents, but if we look at the church, especially our multicultural mega churches, where are they reaching back and saying, not that I just want to have a conversation with all the top tithe payers, but let's reach out and those that need some good information about how I got this wealth so that you can have a legacy laid up of riches as God says we should have for generations to come. Mm-hmm. Let's get back with my time and talent to make sure that all of the communities have access to this information.
That's good.
And so when you see poor education, when you see poor housing because of redlining, because of economic disenfranchisement, it trickles down into ending the fathers being gone. I mean, that's a generational curse. It trickles down into every piece of that thread. And it's so heavy that you can't like just even tease out one of those threads. It's like taking a hemline. You can't tease out that one hem because it's like, it's so many small threads that are raveled up even in that. But I think we as the church, we as women, we've got to push forward to those people that are in positions of power and privilege and tell them. So part of it is that reflection of like, what do I know? What do I bring? Am I racist? Do I have these racist ideas? Enlarging our circles. So I need to have friends that are not like me. So that I'm a realtor, I'm actually selling houses to all different kinds of people in all different kinds of neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I need to look at whatever power and privilege I had and how can I use that for good to make sure that the circle is enlarged. So there's
at all those levels, right?
All the levels,
so
all the levels.
I'm looking at the 3 articulate, intelligent, educated women outside of Michelle and I. I look at the 3 seriously. And so here's the question. Someone could be looking at this going, well, y'all seem to be doing all right. Now they're not in your house. They don't know all the struggles and the details. But this again is part of the issue is we take just a little bit of information, right? And go, oh, they're just angry. Or they're just, because these women seem to have made it. Do you follow where I'm going?
Yeah.
And so then all they got to do is ask.
Yeah.
But
you know, I'll tell you, just ask.
but like, so to the person that says that, right? It's like, oh, you've been to college and you're educated and you understand so much more than I understand. So it's like, how do you then speak to or use the words, or I don't even know how to ask the question that will say to someone, it's like you can come to my home and you see 3 people. Dean and I are married and Michelle. 3 of us live here. And you could drive by and you know we live here, but you're probably wondering, how are we doing this? How does this work? And the few people that really come into our home and see us interact and get to know us and understand the kind of husband that Dean is and understand all of that, it takes time and they start going, oh, like these things, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. People can look at Black people at different things that they would consider, you've made it, you should be okay. And we would say, yeah, there's a lot more we can do. Yeah, there's a lot more there are some hopes and dreams in my life that hasn't come to pass. There are hopes and dreams in Michelle's life that she's like, this isn't the end of the road of what I had dreamed my life to be. I mean, does that resonate at all? Because I just see, and I've had some people reach out, not in a nice way, because they see me posting and they're kind of like poking me a little bit. And I'm not going to take the bait because that's of no value. Like my thing is, if you want to say, hey, Maren, can we talk on the phone? I'm happy to do that. Happy to do that. But from a distance, that again, prejudices and racism is seeing just what I want to see. And you're sitting here going, that's not enough.
I remember when I was going to, the all white school, And one of the things that really shocked me was the amount of opportunity that was there versus going to, other schools, predominantly Black or, multiracial. And the amount of opportunities that was there. But when you go into these impoverished environments, it's not the same thing. Those opportunities are not there. Some of us that, like I said, some of us that have the advantage and we go to some of those schools and we're able to take advantage of those, opportunities, that's great, but it's not afforded to all Black people. And that's the attitude of like, well, all Black people are given the same opportunity and chances as everyone else. And the reality, no, we're not given that. I mean, we're dealing with, like you said, that, the father not being in the home, or, we dealing with a generation of where, the mom maybe is having children out of wedlock, but that's a generational curse because of what the daughters have seen with the grandmothers and the mothers, all throughout her lifetime. Then we're talking about food deserts. All we see is fast foods and things in our communities. We're not seeing all these other stores and stuff. So we're not really in those situations, we're not exposed to that. And it's not in the sense that we don't want that, but we're not exposed to that because they don't see any value there. If there's no value there, they're not going to put that stuff there because they don't see any value there. So
that's good, Drea. Go, girl.
So when we do go out, that was one of the big things for, me and my husband, because he grew up in the inner city. We were exposed to things, we were exposed to things. I mean, we have family members now that the mindset hasn't changed, and it's not because of they just didn't want to change and they just want to stay where there was, but those things was not afforded to them. So I mean, like you said, yeah, all this systemic racism that we're talking about. I mean, like you said, they can just ask, but they don't want to ask. They're good with assuming. They're good with assuming that what they see. Well, if it worked for you, then it has to work for everyone else, and that's just not the truth.
The comment you just made, Drea, they don't see any value there. I think that, you think about people that have money to invest into schools or community, you talk about food deserts, and you go 2 streets over, and it's like you're on a different planet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from just 2 streets over, and I look at that, I'm like, but because they don't see value,
right?
They're not, and they could, like you and I, we all know they could. Someone could, but the systemic of the whole system says no value. The banks say no value.
Right.
Developers see no value. Everyone says no value, no value. So it stays that way. The big fat zero. And that's where people have to pull their bootstraps up and figure it out.
No boots.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope. That was a light bulb for me. I've seen it and we've talked about it, but in this context, we're really, for me, connecting so much.
Yeah,
That's why I said,
no, go ahead.
That's why I said in high school, when I went to the school, I didn't take the opportunities that I was afforded. So at this school, it's a private school, and I had a scholarship because from a clearinghouse that helped urban kids go to schools that they otherwise would not be exposed to. So I'm in this school, and in art class, I learned how to stain glass. I learned how to screen print, and I learned how to do a bas relief. In Spanish, I was reading novels. So then I go to my public high school, and in Spanish, they were like, oh, you're in Spanish 3. And then when I get there, they're like, El gato es gordo. And I was like, oh, no. This the level of education. Now, that was a private school, yes. Right. But it was in an affluent community. Like, I had never even heard of brie cheese until I went to this school. And people were like, you don't eat brie? And I was like, what is brie? And at the same time, they're like, what is that, a Jerry curl? you know,
Yeah.
it's just like they're not exposed. And then when you are exposed, you don't take the opportunities. People tell my kids all the time, you know, you're just so cultured. And depending on the context, you know, if it was an off context, I would be offended. But most of the time it's not. It's just somebody like, your kids do everything. I'm like, yep, we'll be zip lining, skydiving, whatever whatever we want to do. I'm not limiting them to what's in my area, you know.
But on the converse side of that, there are white families who don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to think of all the different items and things to expose their kids to, because it's just easily available, or it doesn't matter if they do it or not, right? We talked about the financial gap in terms of privilege and power and being able to, like the justice system, you know. And we saw it through all the colleges where the rich parents were paying for their kids to get in college, right? Like, would one person they paid like $500,000 just so the girls could get into college?
Yep.
We could never do that.
Yeah.
Never do that. Who can afford that? Who can afford to do? You don't even think to do that. So you make it. Your child has to work super. This is the whole. When Jane was talking about twice as hard, because you're working twice as hard to combat the family that's fictitiously making up a resume for their child that's not existent. You got to at that, and then when you get in, you're accused of coming in on affirmative action.
Right.
You work twice as hard, and someone is lying to their child play water polo or whatever, and they never did. When actually the child probably could have got in on their own merit, but because of, you know, where they wanted them to go, it was like, we're going to guarantee that you get this opportunity. So I'm going to pay the millions of dollars to guarantee that you get the opportunity. When you probably was homeschooled and tutored and had access to every resource available for them to be academically successful, but to guarantee you, I'm going to pay this $1 million so that I'm going to make your way a little bit lighter, child. I'm going to make it easier for you so you can just skirt in under the radar, and I provide you with a platform so that 20 years from now, you're well connected with your peers and colleagues from this university, and you don't have to work that hard.
Yeah. I mean, I laugh when they say, you know, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, because I'm like, well, I mean, if we're really going to be honest, you guys didn't have to do that, because when welfare started, I mean, that was at first, it was given to white people, and it was given to white people to help them and to give them an advantage. So when I hear things like that, I laugh, because I was like, you know, what you're talking about is a myth, and it don't make sense, because even in welfare, I mean, there even was a system that, you know, was put in place, you know, that was like, you know, they would have like these marks for, just like redlining, you know, Black people who are getting welfare, and then for white people who are getting welfare. And they would always keep tabs on the African-American community that was pulling in welfare versus, the white communities. So, I mean, even in that, you can't come and tell me to my face and talking about, you worked hard and everything you done was by blood, sweat, and tears, because that's a lie. It was not by blood, sweat, and tears. The government put in place programs, for white communities to advance in society. And even one of the things that a lot of people don't know, when it comes to the program of WIC, that was actually started by the Black Panthers in their own communities, where they made sure that mothers and children were very well taken care of. But now we see the government is doing that. So that's why I just laugh in their faces when you say that to me, because that's just pretty much, that's a myth.
It is. And Marianne, one of the things you said about like when people look around and say that somebody made it, right? So, I know several Black physicians and lawyers and people that are in the made it category, but their debt load in comparison to someone white is astronomical. And so people that have, balloon payments on their mortgage that are unfathomable, people that have life insurance to cover their debt. I mean, these are all the untold things that no one is seeing or hearing. They just see them. Okay, they're Black, they drive a nice car, they live in a nice neighborhood, but they don't know all the other burden that they're carrying just to be a Black professional in that sector. And so I think that because we walk in that with grace. You know, we don't advertise, hey, I got, you know, $2 million worth of debt. No one's kind of says that, but it's existing, I think, disproportionately for Black people. And so that's not seen and that's not heard. So the lawyers that walk into the courtroom and the other lawyer says, we're waiting for the lawyer to come, and the Black man's a lawyer or the Black woman's a lawyer. So even those microaggressions are existing. So even though they may have made it in the sense of what society's norms would say about affluence or middle class, there's so many other things that are existing that are behind the scenes that people just don't talk about.
Yeah. This past weekend, Stephen Furtick interviewed John Gray.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw it, Joy, or not, but we
Yeah,
watched
I did.
it 2 weekends ago. We
Yeah.
watched it. And in his own neighborhood that he paid his house, that he shared the story that they were criticizing how they didn't like how he was parking his car in his own driveway. Like, and they told him they don't like him. And he's like, he's paid for that house like everyone else had to. He's obviously a man that has worked hard, and he's leading a large church. And so he is under the category made it. We all know there's difference. And the other underlying thing is, but he just can't go buy a house and live in a neighborhood and live his life. I mean,
the underlying thing is, how dare you?
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, Samil.
Yeah.
Like,
How dare you?
it's almost though as we thought that this place would be off limits to you. Thought this was off limits to you. But then how dare you come here?
Even again, like Drea talked about welfare, I've seen discussions recently, like about welfare and, you know, how welfare is for Democrats and welfare is for this person and welfare is for that person. And it reminds me of when I got my job. I mean, not my current job, but when I had my daughter, I was 22, had never worked anywhere outside of, I worked at Miss Fields Cookies, and I went to hair school. And then I decided hair was not for me. So I was going to medical assisting school because I like big words and I can do that. And so I got a job at the telephone company through a temp agency. And after I had been there for 6 months, I got moved to a permanent position. It wasn't automatic, but I got moved to a permanent position. I thank the Lord for the worker that told me when I called to say, I don't need to be on Medi-Cal anymore. She said, no, honey, don't do that. You fill out the papers and let me put you off. Because me getting discontinued from welfare because of my income allowed me to be able to have child care benefits for my daughter. But if I would have said, take me off, I wouldn't have got nothing.
Yeah.
I was making $10 an hour and it was like to go turn around and pay a daycare. But people want to act like Black women just want to stay at home. No, daycare was high when she 24. Daycare was high. I could not imagine having a child right now that needed to go to some child care.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's ridiculous. But people just say, oh, you know, welfare is just to make the, whatever people say, Black people to get up and, you know, all of this type of stuff. And the lady had to tell me, because I was proud. Like, I got my own health insurance. I don't need Medi-Cal. And now I'm telling them, y'all got this Cover California going on. My kids need Medi-Cal. I have paid a lot of taxes.
Right.
I'm going to fill out every paper you tell me to fill out so that they can have free medical insurance, because otherwise it's like half my paycheck.
That's right.
You know, and so it's not about, like Drea said with the WIC and, well, I don't need to get child. You better go get everything, because everybody else is going to get it and take that money, the other money that they're saving, and use it to their advantage. But because we don't want to be labeled and we don't want to be this and we don't want to be that.
Labeling.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
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 And I mean, discriminated against. You see it where, you know, they were trying to pass a bill that people that were receiving medical assistance, they wanted to test them for drugs. Come on. I mean, that is a discriminatory activity that we're talking about. Why? And then you ask mothers to get up and go work, but how can they when their daycare bill, they don't have enough money to feed their family? So it's like they're not making a living wage. You know, it's hard to make a living wage. The daycare costs are so extensive and so expensive. How can you even afford to do both?
Right.
And you don't have the support systems. You know, if you need support to be able to need these generations of support to be able to help you with your family, with all the things. It's like we're in this society where we're just a lone wolf, and it's hard. It is really, really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, because even now statistics say that 50% of the people that 50% and over of the people that actually get welfare now are white people. It's not even people of color, so much. So I mean, these are stereotypes and myths that that still go on to the day. That's not true.
That's right.
Have to do their research.
Yeah.
Again,
that's the first part. That's the first part.
Get educated. The onus is on you.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody does. I sit there and I had to, sometimes I'll start typing stuff and I'm like, girl, it don't even matter what you type. If somebody don't want to know, they not gonna know. It doesn't matter. I could put a link to an article and it's better safe than sorry. Okay. Yeah. You just don't want to know.
Right. And there's nothing we can do about that. When you said at the beginning, Lucretia, and talked about like, where are you? And at the end, or toward you said you're hopeful. And I find that interesting given, I know you're doing a lot of other work and was able to be on one of your calls this past weekend. It was powerful. And so to be hopeful, knowing all that and hearing all that and hearing Andrea, not feeling safe. Like, what is it that gives you hope? And then I would love to close out and to see what you have to say about hope. Samil, what do you have to say about hope? Drea, what do you have to say about hope or not? Because I think to stay in it for the long haul, we have to know we're going somewhere. We're not just dredging up mud. That's dredging up mud that needs to happen. And it's going to get muddy and it's going to get on all of us. And it's just going to splash everywhere. And so I am hopeful that the majority of us, given what I've seen lately, are willing to get muddy and get dirty. Yeah. Like it's just as many, if not more, white people that I see out there arm in arm versus when I grew up in the 60s, white people weren't out there on the streets for the most part. It was very far and few between. So I am hopeful that more of us are admitting, like on the earlier podcast with you, a lot of white women saying, I'm ashamed and I'm ready and it's going to get ugly. It's going to get dirty. And I'm going to have to say something that's going to break my heart and confess. But what gives you hope, Lucretia?
So I think, what I love about this movement is that there is space to honor all the things. So I honor Samil's experience with all that she's going through with her son, with where she is currently, her role in the church. I honor Drea's fear, lack of safety. All that can be done in the same space of hope. So all the voices, they all are coexisting. And so I think that's what's so powerful about this movement is that you can feel unsafe, you can feel fearful, you can be afraid, and you can have hope. You can do it all in the same space with this variation of the intensity of what you're feeling. So, and I think all those voices really matter because, it's like we're not in one individual space, but it's a flow. So it waxes and wanes in terms of how we feel, how we can show up, what we represent. I think for me, I'm really hopeful because the world is responding. The world is responding. You see it happening in Europe. You see it happening in Africa. You see it happening in Asia. You see just this like earthquake of the world responding to racism. People that were otherwise turning a blind eye are opening their eyes. And I think what we need in this movement is this reflection, this knowledge and awareness. And so those allies that we have, people that are in power and privileged to come alongside of us and advocate for us, because we know we cannot do all the heavy lifting ourselves. To me, that gives me hope. And because historically in the civil rights movement, we went from having to drink out of our own water fountain, sit on the back of the bus, to being able to drink out of any water fountain. And so I don't want to forget that. I don't forget that. I don't want to forget that we don't have to be sharecroppers today. I don't want to forget that we're not slaves. I don't want to forget that all the movements, even though they're in the past, they happened and we made some progress. I'm hopeful that the world can respond, and I'm hopeful for the future. These future generations of these kids out here, these young college students standing up, standing arm in arm together, doing all kinds of crazy protests, little children speaking out. I am so hopeful that we are making a move. I don't know that I will see it in my lifetime, but I know that the world is responding. They're listening, and we just got to move the needle forward.
Mm-hmm. That is so good, Lucretia. Thank you. Thank you. Do you find any relief or some solace in that, Samil or Drea?
Yeah, I do.
I'm going to interrupt you. Or you don't have to, going back to Lucretia. You don't have to. I don't want to sit there and go, you now have to feel hopeful, girl.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I won't ever get there, but I think right now for me, I want to see the fruit of this go somewhere, from a conversation to action, to reform and legislation changes and things like that, changes in government. But I feel like the one thing that really gives me the possibility of hope is the next generation, because what we've been seeing in the street for is peaceful protesting. Like I said, we have teenagers and young kids that are willing to lay down their lives for their Black brothers and sisters. I mean, how I see that it affects them in a way that's, their friends are people of color, their mothers, their fathers, their boyfriends, their girlfriends are people of color. And I can tell it's like, yeah, enough is enough. I don't want to see this, for my Black brothers and sisters anymore. And if there's anything that I can do, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let anyone tell me no. And that gives me the possibility of hope.
Wow. Thank you, Drea.
What gives me hope, like Lucretia said, is Lucretia said it was a movement. And when she said that, I saw a ripple, because there are more people than I care to admit that are just posting and not really going to do anything but posting. But people that I actually value their space, I've seen them, I follow a couple of psychologists on Instagram, and one psychologist, when she threw up her Black square, it wasn't because I'm not posting. It was because I'm about to post all these Black people that are doing all the same type of work that I'm doing just as well, some even better. And you need to follow them if you follow me. And so I think that with that, like Lucretia also said, I may not see it in my lifetime, but I think that this civil rights movement back then is not the same. Like we have more at our disposal. They didn't have social media. They didn't have all of that to affect all of these people. So we have an opportunity to affect more people, and it's just going to be like one person at a time or one group at a time. And so I don't really have a choice but to be hopeful. And I'm not saying that like I'm being hopeful under distress, but I'm saying because I am a child of God, and I do believe that it will be okay. But I believe there's some steps to take that we have to make it okay, which is one of the reasons why when I was thinking about what I was going to do after school, I just was like, I want to counsel kids who have dealt with parents that have drug addictions. So I'm thinking psychologists, blah, blah, blah. But then when I realized what social work does, I was like, oh, it's like a whole web, And so I was like, that's it. And I can counsel too, but I'm gonna talk about your environment, and I'm gonna talk about why your daddy not here, and I'm gonna talk about why your mama not here, and I'm gonna talk about why you have to be in EOPS to succeed in school, and all of this type of stuff, because we just don't.
Yep, that's good.
And you're gonna pray for them.
And I'm gonna pray for him, right?
It all, girl.
I'm gonna pray for him.
Covering it all.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, man, I've been taking some notes, so we'll be sharing that as well. But one of the things that Michelle and I have learned is, in the midst of all this hard fight, and we have to be in here for the marathon, and we talked about our lifetime or not our lifetime, we have absolutely have learned that to do it, what is it going to take to sustain it? Because even before the killings became, like you said, Dre, one after another, I was exhausted from COVID. Like I was just, I'm running around the house in circles, not doing anything, and then feeling guilty because I wasn't doing anything and I should be doing something. And every day was none day, as they call it. And then this hit. And so we have to be strong for the long haul. And the international justice fights for sex trafficking and sex slavery, and it's gut-wrenching, ugly work. And the founder, Gary Hagen, I think. Anyways, his quote is, "Joy is the oxygen for us to do the hard things in life." Mm-hmm. And so when I listened to him tell some of the stories and the horrific things that he goes into, he said, we're only able to do this for all the decades because in our office, we laugh, we're silly, we have joy, because that is going to help us to breathe and have oxygen, because we have to be here for the long haul. And so I just kind of want to challenge, because this is what we do in Moxie. Where are you getting your oxygen? Where are you finding your joy, so that we and you can be here for the long haul, next month, next year, however long this takes. It's not going to change overnight, but we have to be in this together for as long as it does take. So for us, we do Moxie. We're doing a podcast. We're laughing. We wear tutus in our neighborhood. Like we did it for breast cancer, but then we thought, what the heck? Let's go walk in our neighborhood with tutus on. And they're not little, they're big.
And we are now, our latest thing is we are doing a hip hop exercise video. It's hilarious. Hilarious. It is hard as can be. It is hilarious. So we laugh.
So where are you finding your joy so that you can refuel yourself for the hard work that you're doing?
Yeah, for me, yeah, it's been exercise and really, because I do like to read, so I read a lot of different magazines and books and articles and and things like that. And just for me, like I don't watch a lot of TV, and that's on purpose. But those are the things that really, where I can really unwind and de-stress and relax.
Good girl.
I bake.
Say for me, I think the things that I've struggled with is how to make time for normalcy when everything's abnormal, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I've really been struggling with, because I've been pressing the gas on this in this movement, but yet at the same time, I know, like you said, Marianne, I've got to get refueled. So for me, some of the things that have been helpful is exercising, like Drea said. I've been exercising every day, taking nature walks with my girls, finding ways to be present in the moment, because I feel like with everything happening in the world, I feel very distracted, and it's really hard for any one thing to get my undivided attention. But that's helped. As I'm teaching, one of the things that's been amazing is that I make space for this conversation, and to say things in this world, in the human condition regarding racism and social justice is really difficult. And when I say that I have gotten so much response to people that have said, thank you just for making space for that conversation.
Right.
And so I think that's fueled me. It's like I'm doing it for them, but I've gotten so much out of that just to make a space for that conversation. So I think those are the things that kind of help me to be more normal in this abnormal time. And of course, going to my father, because he is acquainted with grief. So there is not anything new about the grief that I'm experiencing, because God knows. So those things I think together really just help me to find that balance when I feel like there is no balance.
That's preach it, girl. Thank you for that. Samil?
I bake.
Very scary.
But it's funny. Michelle, don't at me. Okay, don't at me. So don't at me. So I said I'm a baker.
Wait, what am I
but
doing?
You got to
you're
teach her.
adding me. You calling me out. Don't at me. That means don't call me out.
Okay.
When I talked to Michelle and she's like, what are you going to do for Samil this week? I'm like, I'm going to bake something, but there is really a difference between when I have to bake for clients and when I do something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. So my new thing is I made some jam. And so I just ordered some peaches. I just ordered some peaches so that I could make some peach cobbler jam. Ooh. And so I get joy in looking at all the recipes and trying to figure out, what I'm gonna do. But also one of my things is, even with having school and a heavy course load, and with my kids, my daughter had to come home from college. My son is here. My other daughter is still in Georgia. But when we never eat together, like we did not eat together. And now we have started, it's in the living room on TV trays, and we watch Criminal Minds. Like, this is what we do. We have a marathon, and I'm just laying there, and we don't go, we won't start an episode later than 10 o'clock because we all got to get up in the morning. But we will watch like three episodes. When we sit down and watch it, we watch like 3 episodes at a time. And it just brings me so much joy, because I always felt like I could not take the time to sit down with them and just be in the same room.
Yeah.
And so that's what, even though Criminal Minds is, killing and murder, but it's our thing. It's our thing. Yeah, it's our thing.
Judgment. Yeah. No judgment. You do what you need to do. I love that we're giving ourselves a lot of grace.
Yes.
We got to give some self-grace.
Yes.
Self-grace. I'm real good at handing it out, but receiving it.
We say the later episodes are getting kind of dark, right? And we like, oh Lord, Criminal Minds, it seemed like it's getting kind of dark. We need to stop watching it. And then when the next one come on, we be like, hit play.
We're all going to be criminal investigators before it's all over with.
Hit play. Yes.
Well, ladies, we could sit here all day, and we're coming up on our time. Just want to say thank you. Just thank you for your time. I'm just so grateful to know you. I don't have words. I just know that Michelle and I, we love you guys. We pray for you guys. We're praying for one another. We're just really humbled that you would spend time and be so vulnerable and share your heart and your emotions, from sadness to frustration to anger. These are human emotions. It's where we are. We're so grateful. Did you want to say anything?
No, I just thank you. We, like Marianne said, we love you guys, and it just made my day to see these faces. Like, appreciate being here so long. It's so good. And Drea, we get to have lunch with you this week. I'm so excited.
I'm jealous.
Samil, you got to come out.
Yes.
We have a
gosh.
You have to come out.
I was debating. I just told my daughter, I think I need to go back with you when it's time for you to go to school. And she was like, well, I said, not for you, so I can get over there.
Yes.
Come on.
Where's she going to school? Where is she?
She goes to Clark. She goes to
Clark in Georgia. Oh yeah, come on to the south. Yes.
See?
Yeah, she goes to Clark.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We're about 2 hours
Yeah.
from there, so come on.
But then I have a good friend in I don't know where she at in North Carolina, but I don't know what I'm not even gonna pretend because it's not like a Raleigh. I do have a friend in Greensboro, but it's not my friend that I'm talking about. It's in a small town. Her husband is a Marine, so it's probably around in the area of a base,
Yes.
or, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get to Georgia and drive.
Because my parents, I was raised on a military base in North Carolina, and my parents still live there. Wouldn't that be funny if that's where you ended up?
Wow.
No.
Yeah, that would
All right,
be.
ladies, we're going to leave you with our 3 kind of little mini cheer at the end. We'll see if we can do this together right. Hold please.
Okay. We're going to do it?
Oh, no.
Oh,
We can't.
okay. I was going to say it would be a little hard, but we can say it
We can
together.
say it.
So we want you to show up,
Move forward. It's your life.
chin up,
Boldly declare, I got this.
and lift up.
Encourage and celebrate other women. We love you guys.
Thank
Love
you.
you too.
Thank you so much. It's so
She's
nice
in-
hanging out with all of you.
Yes.
She's in Havelock.
Havelock.
Block.
Born in
Okay.
Havelock.
Yeah,
My
she's in
parents
Havelock.
live in Havelock. Steve, you got to come on to
Small world.
the girlfriend.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you soon.
See you
All
all.
right,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Good night.
Bye.